fine. Yeah. Oh. Who is it? Oh, great. Okay, fine. Thanks. I'm good. Shabbat Shalom. We begin on page 3 with the words of Oziv Zimrat Yah. Oziv Zimrat Yah, Vayehi li Shuvah. Oziv Zimrat Yah, Vayehi li Zimradia,
Shuvah.
Shabbat Shalom. How wonderful to be here among friends to celebrate Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath of repentance. I'm Allie Tick Brill. Kenny Lyons, right, needs no introduction.
Nor do you, for that matter.
And we're thrilled to have our Senior Rabbi Emeritus Sam Gordon and Patty joining us. Let's take a moment and greet our friends and wish them Shabbat Shalom. During our Sabbath of repentance, we are taught that the gates of Teshuvah, the gates of repentance, are open and they beckon us to walk through them. We begin our day of rest by turning together to page 11 to read together in the middle of the page. I honor the gift of stillness and rest, a day devoted to peace, peace within my soul. On this day, I have everything I need, peace with those around me. On this day, I seek no quarrel or strife, peace of earth and sky, green trees and quiet water. I give thanks that I am present in this world. I celebrate the miracle of existence, the breath within me, the beating of my heart, the love that blesses my life. Page 10, we turn to our candle blessing.
We sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Page 22, we welcome Shabbat further with the words of Lecha Dodi. We'll sing together the refrain as well as verses 1, 2, and 9. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nikabelah. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nikabelah. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, kishmianu el hamiyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shemo tiferet v'nitchila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nikabelah. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nikabelah. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'ne'alcha, ki hi mekor haberacha. Me'ro ראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך אדוני לקראת קלה, פני שבת בקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קלה, פני שבת בקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך אדוני לקראת קלה, פני שבת בקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Our next prayer, Baruch Hu, that word Baruch Hu has the root of Barech, blessing, Baruch. It also shares a root with Birkaim, knees. To bless means to bend the knee. And as we rise for this prayer, it's customary to bend in the call and response. And as some people do it, they think about God as sovereign and God's power and God's holiness and how that makes them want to bend the knee. And maybe for you, you think of the values that humble you, the values that are big enough and great enough that make you want to bend your knee, justice, goodness, and love. We rise together, page 26, as we consider God and the values that make us bend the knee. Baruch Hu.
את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Please be seated as we turn to page 29. We read together on the bottom. Holy is twilight, the realm of in-between. And so our sages taught, pray in the moments when light and darkness touch. We are all twilight people, beyond categories and labels. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, widen our vision. Let it illumine our way to the God who transcends all boundaries and definitions. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight. Page 30. Love beyond all space and time, your love enfolds your people, Yisrael. We receive it in your teaching, your gift of Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. So let us speak these teachings when we lie down and rise up, and find joy forever in your Torah and mitzvot. They are the very essence of our life, ours to ponder and study all our days. May we never lose or be unworthy of your love. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
On page 32, we sing together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Page 41, we read together. Eternal, watch over my small domain of light and shadow. those few people who share my love, and all others upon this earth that sometimes shakes with thunder and reverberates with lightning. Help us to live with fear and conquer rage. Heal the hate that makes us kill and covers the ground with this Red Sea that only you can part, so we may all walk through the wilderness to your realm of peace, where all men and women are one, and sing your blessed name. Page 40.
Mi chamocha ba'im Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele malchutecha ra'u vanecha v'keyayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Zeli anu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed ve'ne'emar ki fadar Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai ga'al Yisrael Amen.
In Highland Park this afternoon at one of the local elementary schools, Red Oak, there was a bomb threat that evacuated the students. And it turned out to be a false alarm, as was the one yesterday at the same school that evacuated the elementary school children. I was looking at pictures of my friends' kids walking out of the school to safety and hearing about the traumatized parents waiting for their children in this city of Highland Park that's already been traumatized so deeply these past few years. And I was thinking about this prayer and how desperately our prayer of Hashkivenu is needed in this world. And what a blessing it is to tuck our children into bed, to get into bed ourselves at night and anticipate an evening of peace, and how blessed we are to have false alarms instead of real ones. We offer our Hashkivenu prayer, page 42, as we pray for healing for this very broken world.
Baruch atah, atah Adonai haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah, atah Adonai haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah, atah Adonai haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
We turn to page 48 and we rise in body or spirit for the Amidah.
We chant together. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agim tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 50. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh ha'akol, Ve'zocher chazdei avot v'imachot, U'mevi gehula livnei b'neihem, Lema'an shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, V'chodreinu b'sefer ha'chaim, Lemancha Elohim chaim, Melech ozer Moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Amen. We continue chanting on page 52. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al givurot, Umido melach, Melech meimit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Micha mocha av harachamim, Zocher yitzurav lechaim berachamim, Vene'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Turning to page 54. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh.
Please be seated. We turn our prayers now to healing, and we always know of the tremendous need that exists in this room, outside of this room, in our homes, and in the homes of people we love who are in need of healing. I was particularly touched on Rosh Hashanah when we offered our Mishaberach and we asked for names, and there was such a resounding outpouring of names of people who are in need of healing. And it was a reminder that we all have someone we love who is struggling, and all we have to do is scratch the surface or ask the question, and out from our heart comes our highest prayers, those for healing. So if you're praying for someone tonight, we would join you in your prayer if you share their name out loud. We add to those names Ellen Morgan, Amy Reimer. Misha Berach, page 77.
Bless those in need of healing, pause now for a moment of silent reflection and meditation. Page 74, our prayer for peace, the words of Ose Shalom. Ose Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ose Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Hu yaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, amen, amen. Ose Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amen.
When I come home from officiating at a life cycle event, I have this ritual where I open up a document on my computer called Life Cycle Events that I've officiated. And I record the name and the occasion, that it was so-and-so's baby naming and so-and-so's b'nai mitzvah and a funeral as well. And I usually write a sentence or two of something that I learned from that person. And my list of people whose funerals that I've officiated is at 45. And I think of this group of people as being very dear to me. I only had the pleasure of knowing some of them. Most of them I came to know through their family members' recollections, but they're so vivid because of what their family members have told me about them. And in my career so far, I've had the honor of officiating at funerals for some very distinguished people, people of great professional achievement, a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, titans and giants of industry. But there's one name on my list of a young 28-year-old man named Max, whose funeral I officiated, who always stands out to me as one of the most impressive people who I've had the honor of officiating at their funeral. And this young man didn't have any professional accomplishments like some of the others on the list, and no graduate degrees or other markers that our society might look to evaluate his accomplishments. But he lived such a beautiful and rich life. He was a customer service representative at Apt, and he took such care and attention to respond to people's needs. And his family members shared with me a story of how one day he wasn't able to respond to someone's request for service who had a sick family member at home, and how he drove home from work weeping that he wasn't able to help. That was just how he approached the world. And when I look at my list and when I see his name, it reminds me, of course, that your life is not about how you make a living, but how you make a life and the way you treat people and what you're able to accomplish with your years on this earth. There's a teaching that says that during these 10 days of awe, when the shofar is blown on Rosh Hashanah, a bridge is formed between heaven and earth, and things that are not possible the rest of the year become possible. And through the perspective of heaven, we're able to see our lives more clearly and to make changes that we all hope to make. So tonight we're going to do some text study, and we know you've heard a lot of our voices and heard our teachings, and so I'm really hoping we're going to get to hear your voice and hear your thoughts. So if you would turn to the text that we shared, and Kenny is sharing it for folks online. If you're not familiar with this text, it comes from the Talmud, and it is often referred to as the 7 questions you're asked in heaven. So there are some assumptions in this text that I want to just talk about in the beginning. The first is about heaven's existence itself. Many people think that heaven is not part of Jewish tradition because we have such an emphasis on this life and how we behave in this life that people feel like that's a tradition and a belief that's not really ours. And that's actually not true. There are so many Jewish texts codified in the Talmud that speak to the world to come and speak to righteous people having a portion in that life to come. So this text that we're looking at comes from the Talmud, and there are other similar texts that imagine a heavenly court that you come before after your time on earth is done, and you are asked different questions at this court. So we are going to look and discuss some of these together. So let's start with if you didn't see this text sheet first, what do you think would have been one of the first questions that would have topped the list of what a heavenly court, what God might be interested in asking you about when you arrive at those gates? Ethics. Yes, so the first question listed in this Talmudic text, which states, Rava used to say, when they escort a person to the final judgment after death, the heavenly court asks, number 1, did you do business, buying and selling faithfully? So Clive, to you this speaks to ethics. Would someone have put something different as the first question? Are you surprised to see something about business and buying and selling? I see some nodding. Let's get this discussion going. Were you good? Were you kind? Were you considerate? Absolutely. I think something that's so interesting is starting this list with fairness and honesty kind of puts into practice those perhaps more important values, Carla, that you talk about, kindness, compassion. But if you don't play those out in your everyday life, then they're just sort of ideals that you think of. I'd like to direct your attention to the text A from Deuteronomy that is sort of a proof text for this question. You shall not have in your pouch alternative weights, larger and smaller. You shall not have in your house alternate measures, a larger and a smaller. You must have complete and honest weights and complete and honest measures. For everyone who does those things, everyone who deals dishonestly is abhorrent to the Lord your God. So this question is asking, when you were doing business, were you transacting fairly? Were you using weights that were tipped toward your favor or not? And we know this is such a critical demonstration of ethics, and that we can all be ethical in our mind's eye and in the privacy of our homes. But when you're outside of your home and when you're conducting your business and when you have some skin in the game, how those ethics play out is of critical importance and primary importance, this text would say. Let's look at the second question. Question number 2, did you set aside fixed times for study? So, love to hear your reactions to this second question. What strikes you about it? Speaking as someone who can answer this question, Howard, with a resounding yes, can you share with us what that means to you about setting fixed times and the impact that can have as our Torah study leader? Absolutely.
think the idea of the fixed time is interesting because it creates a pattern and a ritual, and not just, a random, like, I study when I feel like studying, or when I have time to study. This is just creating a routine and a ritual.
Absolutely. In some ways, it's harder because it's saying, did you make this habitual? You can't let yourself off the hook right away. But in some ways, it's also very achievable because all it's asking is, did you set aside the times? It's not asking, did you remember? Did you make mastery over? But did you make it a priority? Did you center your life around this and make it important enough to have a place in your calendar? Other comments about that? Okay, question number 3. Did you busy yourself with being fruitful and multiplying? I hear some snickering. And this is certainly a reference and a callback to the instruction that God gives to the first humans to be fruitful and multiply. And in that case, it has to do with procreation. Is there an alternate way you might, or a more expansive way you might understand what this means in this text? Jane.
If it weren't part of, if it weren't part of the multiplying sentence, I think it means, are you making good use of your time? Are you, whatever, for whatever that means to you, is your time being used wisely and thoughtfully?
Yeah, also just, are you being productive, like maybe ideas or, it could be other things than just, straight procreation.
Absolutely. I think that reading it on just the literal level it's so obvious. But it actually speaks to legacy. Were you someone who created, who brought new ideas into the world? Were you someone who mentored, who taught, who helped nurture, and can be understood in a much more general way than how many children did you have? But were you someone who was creative in this life? In the Hebrew, it uses the word askata. Did you busy yourself with being fruitful and multiplying, which I think is a really interesting avenue into understanding what it means. It's not saying, were you someone who just created and was fruitful and multiplied and created legacy, but did you busy yourself with it? Did you make it your priority? Did you fill your time wisely with doing that? Our fourth question, did you hope for redemption? So in the literal meaning of this text, it's asking, did you believe in the Messiah? Did you believe that one day the world would be redeemed and that things can be better than the way they are? Comments on this one or how this one sits with you? To me, this question is asking about your attitude. Were you someone who was hopeful? Did you let cynicism and doubt and negativity cloud your vision, or were you able to look at the world and imagine a better possibility? I put on our text B, this, of course, is echoed in Viktor Frankl's powerful words. The last and greatest human freedom is the freedom to choose your attitude. So our fifth question, did you seek wisdom? Did you understand one thing from another? How do you think this question might be different than the other question about learning? Please.
I wanted to go back to B on Viktor Frankl because I think that is extremely profound. Everything is about choices. And there is dignity involved when we allow others to make their choices without us trying to control the choices that they're going to make. So I'm kind of back to that. And I think that's where the dignity lies.
Beautiful. Thank you, Carla. think it's interesting to think about from the perspective of heaven, that heaven would care about our attitude and how much control we try to have on other people, or how we can let our hope for them remain something that lives inside of us and not something that we try to impose on someone else. Brenda.
Number 5. I think this says, did you ask questions? And did you listen to others?
Absolutely. Right, did you seek wisdom? Were you able to not just acquire knowledge and facts, but did you understand? Did you ask questions? Did you arrive at a deeper understanding of how the world works and what moves people? Question number 6. Were there earthly pleasures permitted to you that you did not enjoy? Oh, you do? Pardon me. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was a typo. Pardon me. The 6th question is, should be translated as, were there earthly pleasures permitted to you that you did not enjoy? Which I think is surprising when it's not on your text sheet, but is also a surprising concept in general, that our tradition asks us to enjoy this world and that we will be held to account for not enjoying it. I'm sorry for the confusion by copying the wrong question there. I want to turn your attention to text C from Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who is the founder of what we now think of as Orthodoxy. He surprised his students when he insisted on traveling to Switzerland near the end of his life. Perplexed, his students asked him why such a journey was so important to him. And he explained, "When I stand shortly before the Almighty, I will be held answerable to many questions. But what will I say when God asks me, and he is certain to ask, 'Shimshon, did you see my Alps?'" I think this question, that were there earthly pleasures you did not enjoy, is a very empowering one to get from our tradition, that we are supposed to taste and feel and dance and enjoy and see great theater and read wonderful books, and that is part of living a life oriented toward awe and gaining wisdom, and that's a way of honoring the gift of being alive. And the 7th question, have you been true to yourself? This Talmudic question harkens back to a different Talmudic story where Zusia comes before a heavenly court and God asks him, "Why were you not Zusia? Why were you not yourself?" That we are not asked to be anyone other than who we are. That we each have a tikkun, a repair that only we can make in this world, and that we will be called to account for not being true to ourselves and fulfilling our unique mission. So looking at these questions as a whole, I'm curious what you make of them. Do you think they're moving in an order of descending importance? Which question here do you think is most important? Let's give Howard the mic and hear what he has to say.
I mean, the last one to me is to your first question, this would have been the first question I would have expected, not the last question.
Does anyone want to go at it with Howard on which question they think is most important?
But another way of looking at this is that each of these questions relates back to a rule, what you're supposed to do. And if you look at all of them together, you're kind of left with the feeling, were you disciplined enough to follow all the rules? And which in Talmudic sense is a legitimate question.
Absolutely. You know, I read them a little differently. To me, I read them as, were you disciplined enough to have some fun? Were you disciplined enough to choose life and enjoy every moment of this precious life? Maybe that's not a different reading, but it's interesting how we can all take away from this something different. Are there other comments about the questions, or one that you think should have been your question that isn't on this list that should have been on this list. Clive.
Because I'm a scientist, okay? And seeking wisdom is what I do, and seeking new ideas and using new ideas for the benefit of others. And to me, that's being true to myself. I find some of the other questions either a little obtuse or not quite so important.
I think I would have put Carla's value that you shared in the beginning about kindness and compassion on here. Did you do something to alleviate someone else's suffering? Did you do something to make someone's path gentler? I think deserved a spot. Blair.
Along those lines, the most important question might be, did you love your neighbor? Since it's often said that all the commandments can be reduced to that. And so that seems to be, at least in my mind, a significant omission. Because it isn't just about yourself. I'll disagree with Howard. But rather, it has to do with community, and that's a very Jewish value, I think. So, anyway.
I think like so many texts in the Talmud, the questions are the answer. And these questions give us some marching orders to take with us into the new year about how to conduct our business, how to enjoy earthly pleasures, how to seek wisdom. And it's my prayer for us that as we enter this year, we don't wait until we have the perspective of heaven to answer these questions with our true self shining through and with us choosing life in the best way that we're able to. So, Shana Tova. We'll turn now to Aleinu, and we will rise and turn to 79 on the top of the page.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שבונותי שמיים ועושר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the very next page. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Shemo Echad.
Please be seated. We bring into our hearts now our loved ones of blessed memory, and we remember these members of our congregational family who died recently. Frank M. Turkheimer, John Rice, Marilyn Krasnov, Stephen Vogel, Amnon Ritter, Harley Orlov, Stuart Grill, Lynn Lawrence, Blossom Corzon, Herman Light, Jerome M. Komar, Lillian Carter, Florence Press, Marcella Marcy Morgan, Frederick Gottlieb, Mo Bachman, Arthur Z. Kamen, Linda Moscow, Yekaterina Abramson, and Martin Schwartz. Are there other names to add to our list? Zikronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. We rise and turn to page 86. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach l'olam omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei Dekudisha, Barechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Le'ela, Amran be'ama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Just a couple of announcements. This Sunday evening is Kol Nidre, and the following day, the holiday of Yom Kippur. You can find the full schedule of services on our website. 1 week from tonight will be the Shabbat at which we celebrate Sukkot, begin to celebrate Sukkot. So we do invite you to join us for that special Shabbat as well. And on October 6th, we will mark Simchat Torah with our first Simply Shabbat of the season. Shabbat services that evening will be at 6 p.m., not 6:30 p.m. And if you have a young person that you'd like to bring along with you to that service, like young person, there will be...
person.
Yes, there will be crafts and a little snack before services at 5:15 up in the social hall.
We conclude our service with hearing the blast of the shofar. Tekiah. Shavarim Trua. Tekiah. Shabbat Shalom.
Please join us in the foyer for Kiddush and Motzi and a little bit of conversation.